And I'm going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cataloging Advisory July 2020. We have kind of a lot of things to go over. The agenda is kind of divided up into a couple updates on ongoing projects, discussion ideas. We're not in the middle of anything right now, kind of as a group. And so I was hoping we could maybe talk about some things that we could start to look at as like a new project, even if they're not enormous, just something to have our minds towards. And then some more updates and some stuff that's going to be coming down the line later this year for us to do. So it looks like, oh, we've had a bunch of people sign on. It might be better if we stay muted, although feel free to unmute yourself and chime in at any time. Yeah, because at one point we're going to want to just be talking kind of together. I was going to do introductions, but those never seem to work very well on these online meetings because nobody knows who to go next. But maybe the first time you talk, you can identify yourself so we can learn your voice.
Yeah, Zach, what you can do is based on your screen height, Joy speaking, what you can do is call out the people that you see in order on your screen, because what's going to be difficult is the majority of the people have their video turned off.
That's
so
true.
We're not going to know when they want to speak.
True, and we can also do a mic test in that as well. So it looks like, can I hover? Oh, I can hover and get names. Okay, so Swan Libraries, that's Dawn. She's doing some work right now, so I won't make her pop out of hiding. Sam, are you there?
I am.
Hi, Sam. All right, that's
Hi.
Sam from Swan. Jim, I have you next.
Yes, that's me.
Hi. Good. All right, you're working. I can see your face. JT is Julie St. Charles.
Hi.
Hello, Julie. How you doing?
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself again.
Okay. Amy?
Hi there.
Hi, Amy. Who's next? We've got Victoria.
Hi.
Hi, Victoria. All right, I can hear you. Carrie, you there?
I'm here. I just didn't know if this was going to be too much of a glare. I can turn my camera on, but I'm here.
Either way, hello. Joy, I've got you next. You know you're coming through.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Claudia, you there?
Yes, I am.
Cool. Hi, Claudia.
Hi.
Sue, I've got Sue next. From Swan. Well, we'll see if Sue can chime in a bit later, but I know she's on. Colleen, hi, Colleen.
Hello, all.
Hello. Diane, are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Diane. Oh, Sue's having some technical issues, but she is with us. And Melissa.
She's here, but no microphone available.
Oh, I see. There's a chat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay,
Hi,
great.
Melissa.
So that is who we are. Good. So we're going to start real quick. I'm actually going to turn it over to Claudia right away to give us an update on where we are with this record management process.
Are you able to project a document I sent?
Yes. So I've got.
Yes, that one. The other one.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. I emailed you these two documents yesterday. Did you have a chance to take a look at them? Does anyone want to chime in?
Yes, I saw them.
Yes, I looked at it.
Okay. Any comments to start with?
I don't think it's surprising.
I'm sorry, Joy, I couldn't hear you very well. Can you repeat that?
Yes, I don't think anything of it was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
It all seemed to be, what you would expect to find.
Right. Yes. So my impressions are that I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of cataloging. I think the two things that jump out at me, it's the missing 655 tag that we need to discuss that, and the missing 650 second indicator 0 when records have only the second indicator 1, which are children's subject headings. So I think those are the two topics, the two most common errors we should concentrate on. I think I contacted a couple of people about the missing 655 tag, and they were a little surprised that that was a required tag. But I think with the Scott, maybe I'm jumping ahead the game here, but I think with the implementation of the genre facet in Enterprise or future implementation, we might want to take a closer look at the 655 tag. And what is your opinion as a group? Should the 655 be required for fiction materials or not, or optional?
Yeah, we did decide last year during the...
That was required, right?
It was. I just want to make sure people still stand by that.
Yes.
Really enforcing it.
Yes. Yeah, because, you know, your genres are not valid 650s anymore. So if you want fiction, you have to have a 655.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Because if they're not, then they're deviating from the new standard. And basically, I'm talking international standard, not just SWAN standard.
Right.
At least basically the way that I understand it.
Yeah, same here. And I noticed that this is really a widespread issue, that if the OCLC record does not contain a 655 tag, upon importing, very rarely people are adding 655. So I emailed a few people. I wrote down a few records to send later. But then at some point, because almost every record I would look, it was missing the 655, or it was just like 655 fiction, when it could be better than just fiction. So we stand by making it a required field for fiction. However, some nonfiction records like cookbooks, biographies, guidebooks, some of them were also missing the 655. Do we want to make that a requirement for certain nonfiction materials?
I think the nonfiction 655 is still kind of new, but I think that if it's available, that I would use it. To me, it's helpful.
Okay.
I agree with that. And we have this sort of problem that if we're going to be bringing up this, you know, surfacing these genres more and encouraging them, not a problem that is unsolvable, but I think we need to talk about like how to get people on board with it. And if we could, I don't know if it's a matter of having like recommendations for certain types of materials or what, to get people to say, oh, this is a cookbook, and to remember to think that maybe that should be added in there, without saying, you know, it's got to be universally applied to all nonfiction, especially because there's so many terms, and it's really impossible for us to wrap our heads around, you know, every possibility.
Yes, Scott, I think the only one that I've really seen a genre is cookbooks, unless there is something also for guidebooks, for your travel guides. There may be one for books, but those are the only two formats that I would think would apply. I haven't done any songbooks recently, so I don't know if that is also a genre.
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. What was that?
Songbooks.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know.
There's scores, and then there's I think it's just scores. I think it's just scores B. There's also, I mean, it's pretty heavily used with comics. The comic and graphic novel ones have gotten they've been expanded a lot in the last couple months. And I think one thing that would be helpful, Scott, speaking to Claudia's, what you mentioned about there's just the single 655-7 with fiction. I think part of the difficulty that some people might have with using this is when you get a book that really is just sort of a generic, like not generic, but we all know the books, that like it's not a mass market and it's not a mystery and it's not a thriller. So it's just sort of, you know, general fiction, general literature. And those kind of things, I don't know if we really want to, I think that if we were, I think to get buy-in, it would be helpful to have recommendations where if you don't know what it is and you don't want to just use fiction, use domestic fiction or something, because I think that that happens a lot, where we get these materials that nothing really applies. And so I think through no fault of anyone, they're not including it because it's like, well, it's just the book. Like, you know, it's not. So I think that if we gave more detail about what a recommendation might be, if you get that book, like, I think that that might help, because I think more often than not, you get a book and it's just a book and you're like, okay, this is fine, because it is, because a genre heading that's more detailed isn't really applicable. So it's like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
yeah.
Victoria,
And I think, you know, it should be kind of qualified that genres, when applicable, it's like as with some of the subjects, when applicable.
oh, right, yes, that's definitely.
Because, you know, we say that, you know, we want 2 or 3 subjects, but there are some works where one subject covers it. And so it's like, would you try to come up with another subject when it's not necessary? So I think if you just say applicable and just highly encourage that, you know, if it does fall underneath, you know, the main genre, or basically, you know, that we use it. And Victoria in chat also pointed out biographies. That's the
Right.
nonfiction genre.
That's a big one, yeah, an autobiography.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, I just so automatically see them. I don't think of them because it's so second nature.
Right. And in my, she
Yeah,
also mentioned, oh, sorry, real quick, Victoria also
Go
mentioned
ahead.
the term novels, and that's something that I've fallen, oops, excuse me, I dropped something. That's something I've fallen back on a lot. Novels, poetry, those are real generic terms that are in there, and they are valid. I mean, so I think maybe if we gathered some of those together as well, that might be, because it is like one step.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
At least.
Graphic novels, yeah. Yeah, I think for the nonfiction, we should do a required cookbooks, guidebooks, and biographies, because being a patron, I know I would click on those to find other materials.
The only
Someone had also mentioned poetry. Is poetry a valid genre?
I believe.
Let me double check.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Then I would almost say that too.
Poetry as well. Okay.
I'm the only thing about that I would be apprehensive about when it comes to this is that it becomes very, very granular. And if we have a list of 5 things, you always have to remember that it's a list of 10 things, and then it gets kind of out of hand.
Right. So basically, I think, you know, there again, if you just do the generic, use the appropriate, you know, use the genre term when appropriate, because then are we going to talk about the music CDs, where, you know, rock music, because I just did some rockabilly, because they don't consider rock music starting until the 60s. You can't use a year subdivision to specify that this is from the 50s. It's not valid. So you're going to have a 650 rock and a 655 rock music. And those are both correct.
Right.
I think down the road, what they're going to try and do is get away from the 650s for the music CDs, but I don't even know if that'll be within my lifetime, but
yeah, we'll see.
The thought process has been put out there.
Yeah, it's long overdue in my opinion, but yeah, absolutely. So this sounds like what we need is me to start writing something up. I think what I would like to do is create sort of a document that is shows the genre vocabulary, like that the actual resource and how to navigate it a little bit. What to do on sort of those fringe situations when the thing you have in your hand is just too generic. What to do with nonfiction in general. And then some of those terms that we sort of want to emphasize and encourage the use of travel guides, cookbooks, those things that we would like to get as consistent as possible, maybe called out and sort of collected together without saying this must be the way starting today, just to get that awareness going.
Yeah, and then I think if you do say this, like we're just trying to be consistent because consistency helps the patron.
Right.
Right.
Say, why do 8 out of the 10 books in the series come up this way and the other 2 don't?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a big thing, like people entering volume information in a different way. Like some records had volume, on the title, like subfield in, they had volume spelled out, and then 1 like ONE, and then others had VOL periods, then a volume in a number format. So that's a thing to watch out when cataloging books in a series, like to take an extra 30 seconds to see how it has been done, so to follow a certain standard. So the records display better when somebody looks for that series. Along the fiction, 655, and how about the 520? There were fiction records missing the 520. I think I remember we did that as a required tag for fiction. What is?
Yes, Claudia, that's my understanding too, that we made it required and we even encourage it for all records.
Yeah, that's basically what the support site says.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so there were fiction records without the 520. Some I added, some I kept them aside to email people later. But that's something to keep in mind too. And to talk to your staff, because many of those records that were missing, the 655 or the 520, it's not from people who are here in the meeting listening to this. It's really like a staff and your tech services at your library.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, do you want to start with to approach the 650 second indicator 1 now?
We may as well, since we sort of dove into genre, we may as well dive into that as well a little bit. I had trouble recalling. I feel like we were a little bit maybe, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but inconclusive in our discussion of children's subject headings. We don't remove them automatically. We didn't accept, we did say that we do need a valid 650 second indicator 0. And I don't believe I have, I don't remember what I did now. I don't believe I have them being pulled with our automated updates. So I kind of want to just revisit that topic and make sure we were all on the same page. There is one issue. I did talk to Marchive, our automated automation vendor, who does our authority work on our bibliographic updates, and I asked about conversion of children's subject headings, and that's not, there's no pathway. We can do a superficial conversion where we would turn, a 650 second indicator 1 that said subfield v fiction into juvenile fiction with a second indicator 0. But what it wouldn't be able to do is cross that line between when the terms are actually different between the children's and the adult vocabulary. The big example that always comes to mind is swine and pigs. So it's not really possible to automate this. There's no pathway for that. So that is something to keep in mind.
Okay, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we had made the decision that all the children's, that we were stripping out the 650 second indicator 1s and that they all had to be 650 second indicator or whatever the 65X was and second indicator 0.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm doing.
For some reason, and that's great. So for some reason, my notes on that were not clear to me, and I didn't really realize it until a little bit of time had gone by. So that is perfectly fine with me. It's not something, it is also something that we can get happening on its own, so it's not something that I don't think anybody would have to pay close attention to. If you leave them in your records doing your cataloging, it's fine. We can have them pulled. So I just want to make sure that was still okay. I mean, or that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that could be one of your long-term projects.
What is
is trying to find the children's headings that don't have the main 6.5 indicator zeros.
Oh yes, you're right. Now you're reminding me what we actually talked about, and the reason I didn't move on it. I didn't move on it because I didn't want to, because I needed to find those exactly as you're describing. I didn't want to delete anything. Oh gosh, thank you for that. And yes, I'm going to actually write that down right now so I don't mess this up again. Clean up of children's headings without corresponding adult headings, or no, I should say standard headings. Thank you for that. Okay. I must have taken corresponding. I took bad notes at one point. That I can definitely do. And that I can actually probably do this month. I have some time and I kind of know how to approach that. Excuse me. After I got some neat tools from Assure Sailing a couple of consultations ago with our Associate Dynamics rep, gave me a insight into how I could do that. Thank you.
Okay, one more thing about the record auditing from June. May I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for audiovisual records, some were missing the 041 and the 546 for language, and it was brought to our attention that combo packs should have 2 538 tags, which I didn't include here. I actually didn't pay that much attention to the 538 tag, but as a group, do you agree with the combo packs having 2 538 tags for DVDs, Blu-rays, combo packs?
Oh, somebody's in chat.
And 2007, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Julie's.
Okay, well, the 538, according to the standards, that's optional because they're to use the 346, the 347, and the 348.
Mm-hmm.
So if a 538 is missing, it is technically not incorrect.
Okay, but if you have the
34X's,
mm-hmm.
And then the reverse is true.
So from a cataloger's perspective, I think it's easier to add a 538 than looking for those 34XX tags to add. What is your opinion?
I mean, I do have an opinion. I was going to reserve it for a bit.
Go please.
The 538, I feel, is meant to be. I mean, it differs from the 34X's in that it's meant to be read. It's meant to be seen by a person. And I would question how useful that actually is to a patron. Blu-ray means Blu-ray, DVD means DVD to most people, and I don't know that they could see that in the format and not need to say this requires a Blu-ray player because it, you know what I mean?
Well, I would like us to keep the two 538s because the 34X fields haven't really been, I mean, OLAC, they're a standard, we should be using them. They're not really being universally used to the extent that I think we could rely on them and get rid of the 538. Also, when people are doing copy, I can't speak for other libraries, but when I mean, it's been years and they know to look. Our copy catalogers aren't looking at the 3XX fields really at all. So I would like us to keep it, and it is being done for the most part in OCLC, so it's not like it would be adding something, just making sure that that 2 of them are there. I don't know, that's just me. I would like to keep it, but if we don't, I don't really care either way.
Yeah, I think most people, you know, when they're cataloging it and in the 300, if they're doing one Blu-ray and then a subfield E with one DVD, that they are doing the 2 538s.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part with what I've seen. Although there again, you know, it's one of those things, you see what you expect, so you only remember what you see. That I think, you know, I'm going to contradict myself, but I think even when they say 2 video discs, when it's a Blu-ray and a DVD, I still think that they're doing the 538s, because that's really the only way sometimes I know that it truly is a combo pack, because it has 2 of those fields.
Right. And
but
also,
it's like there again, you know, the standards, and because it's just, you know, because so many people are contributing, it's kind of all over the place. But you know, I think if we want to say that, you know, a 538, you know, for both formats required, then, you know, that's kind of side. But there again, it is kind of duplicating what should be in the 300.
Mm-hmm. We did, I mean, if we're just looking at it from the perspective of what we just talked about last year, we did require the 538, and by extension, that would mean to me that the dual 538 should be, you know, required based on the fact that there are 2 things in this combo pack. I mean, maybe that's an oversimplification, but in my mind, the rule is sort of already there. So I feel like maybe we can continue to call out the lack of 2.
Right, I should add that to that combo pack report that Michael created. So when the report runs again, it will catch records that are missing 538 tag, 2 538 tags. The same way it caught records that were missing having 2 007 tags.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll make a note of that, and I will meet with Michael.
Claudia, I have one question. You had mentioned about that the missing 041 and 546, especially in the audiovisual records. Are those fields?
Say again?
The 041 is a required, I think they're both required fields for audiovisual records.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do enough original on those formats to always remember.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times with what I'm looking at, it's like, I don't have enough information.
Yeah, the 041 language code is required for audiovisual materials. And I think it goes hand in hand with the 546, and the 546 is also required. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we have on the support side. And yes, I would bet my hand on that they are required. Anything else about the record auditing? As you can see, I looked at a lot of records, about 25% of fully cataloged records, and it's very time consuming. So considering that we were pleasantly surprised with the quality of the records, and that's great as a consortium, Scott and I were discussing cutting back on the auditing to committing to look at 25 records per day. Everything that was cataloged yesterday, I'll pull out 25 records and try to pull at least 1 record from each cataloging library.
Right. And
Right.
that's not a response saying like, oh, we're fine. Everything's fine. So we're going to scale back. This is me
Right.
saying to Claudia that I need her to be doing other things. It took up a
Yeah.
real lot of her time.
Yeah.
And even
And,
as
and that's me saying I would like to be doing other things too.
right. So as we distribute this into, the rest of the team, it is a matter of just, BIB services resources and what we have to allocate. But based on the idea that we were seeing so many repeated problems, and that's still 100-something records a week. It's still I think it's pretty good coverage. I don't think you need to do 25% to get a sense of what's really happening.
And we also count on cataloging libraries to report errors or inconsistencies. It's not like pointing finger or anything. It's just keeping in mind the quality of the catalog.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on the workload of this and adjust it as needed. Maybe we can even dive in a little more as time goes on. But that's sort of what we were following, especially as everybody came out of their hobbit holes and started cataloging again. Like it started out pretty okay, and then as we were getting like 600 records a day, 25% of that is just not a reasonable expectation. So I hope that's okay with everybody. We are definitely committed to continuing this and making it work. Just wanted to make it clear why that scaling back was happening. Any comments there?
Well, and Scott, it's Carrie. I think it was great what you guys did, and it makes me feel better that the level is low. But the one thing you can't catch is problems in the content notes or problems in the title when people don't transcribe correctly. And I just want people to remember you can't catch that with this record auditing, and we need to keep stressing people have to look at the record when they bring them in.
Yeah.
I know that's the dead I keep beating, but I've been doing a lot of cataloging the last couple weeks, and that gets discouraging.
We would like to see some of the things you are seeing, Carrie. If you could send examples. I know you've been good at providing examples before of things you've noticed. As I said, I looked at 25% of everything that has been cataloged. So I really count on you guys to report inconsistencies and problems. So
and you can't see those things because you don't have the item in front of you. So some of those things you can't catch.
The problems you're seeing, are they like foreign language materials or just regular items?
They're just regular people things. And I know I should send it in, but we're so behind right now that I'm not taking.
I understand. When you mention notes, do you mean like a table of contents notes or just like
table of contents that people aren't checking them? And again, sometimes it's not a big deal, but sometimes the table of contents are actually something that somebody would search.
Yeah. That is, yeah, because we don't have the item in hands. But it's helpful if you have time, like whenever you come across one or two examples to send us so we can address, because many times it's like a repeating offender who keeps doing that, like, rushing, cataloging. So that would be helpful for us to see who's been doing that.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yes. Okay. Claudia, did you have anything else to go over regarding record management?
Yes, about communication, I have emailed a few libraries about some problems or things I noticed, and I have a few records to send almost everyone with little things to correct, just to give you an idea of the things I saw, and I will be emailing them this week. And then after this, I will be doing that bi-monthly, because since we're scaling back, looking at 25 records every day, so I will email things not things that you need immediate attention, but like little things like every 2 months I'll email, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, basically a rundown of everything that's been found. Claudia was
Right.
also thinking of doing every month or so a sort of a, I don't know what to call it, but a mass message saying, oh, this is a thing we've been seeing in cataloging, or, oh, did you know about these cool genre terms? Some sort of, just to touch base and say, and to highlight some things that we've noticed that maybe would be beneficial to everyone to start thinking about and paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort
So
of
yeah,
iterative.
yeah, right. I had a request from a library. Oh, you should email like once a month, like little refresh things so we don't forget, or things we don't see very often. So I'm going to start doing that once a month too.
So I'm going to shut this down then.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Did we need this for any reason? This is just some examples of things that you found, screenshots, but I think it's all fairly straightforward. Right. Can I give control to you, Sam? Are you ready to talk about item type consolidation?
Yeah, I am on the web interface, so there is a possibility that it won't work, but yeah, I do have the spreadsheets up, so if you're able to give me control.
Okay. I have your name is, you're not, oh, you're at the top. You're under,
Oh, yeah.
here, make presenter. Yes. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry, just fumbling with technology a little bit. Okay, it's going to get really weird for a second because you're going to see all of your cameras. Okay, let's just start with this. Okay, can everyone see a spreadsheet?
No. Oh, there it is.
No. Okay. So this is just an update. At the last meeting, I talked about a project that we're starting to do, talking about item type consolidation. And the first audit we did of item types sort of identified these low-hanging fruit item types, so they're in relatively low use across the consortium. And we started by isolating Blu-ray and DVD and video item types just specifically. So this is a spreadsheet that I did show last time, but I think it was pretty brief and it looks a little crazy, but basically it counts all of those Blu-ray, DVD, video item types by library. And then I had to manually pull in the circulation rule that those item types use for each library and their holdability rules. So what this helped us to was analyze which item types are being used and which are not being used as much. And we identified, I think, 7 item types for possible deletion. And so if you were using one of those libraries item types, you would have already gotten an email from me. And so I'm not sure offhand if any of you are here today. I'd have to look at my sheet, but
Victoria's
basically, oh, great. Yes, I definitely did talk to you, Victoria. And so some of you were extremely flexible and just immediately said, yes, that's great, let's remove these. And so we've moved forward with that. Some are just a little more not sure if they want to eliminate the item type. So we are just in a phase of talking, and nobody's saying you have to stop using the item types by tomorrow. It's all a conversation. But so if you've heard from me, then thank you for working with me on that. And then we also, so this was the first phase of Blu-ray, DVD, video. And let's see if I can share another spreadsheet. So the next phase of this is audio. So I will be doing the same kind of thing, reaching out to libraries that are using some item types that are in relatively low use. And you should be seeing another spreadsheet that looks similarly intense. But these are just like the other one, a bunch of audio item types broken down by library with the circulation and the holdability rules intact. So you will be hearing from us again if you are a library that is using one of these less common item types. And we'll just be talking and seeing what we can do to cut down on this list. So yeah, that's where we are with that. And so you might be hearing from us soon. Does anyone have any questions?
I do, Claudia, I'm sorry, Sam, it's
Or you
Carrie.
can call me whatever. Yeah.
Well, I'm reading the chat and there's a lot of Claudia. We're getting ready to start a Blu-ray collection.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that I don't use the ones that you're trying to get rid of.
Sure.
And I can't see like the whole spreadsheet. I don't think I'm seeing.
Yeah,
Can you
you're probably
give me a
just
list of ones you don't want me to use?
sure. Yeah, we can start talking about that. Let me pull up this, and I'm sorry, I'm sharing my screen, so I'm not seeing any of the questions coming in chat, so I'll pop over once I'm done with that, but let's see. The ones that we selected for possible deletion are highlighted down here. So you can see, for example, this Blu-ray _JFE.
I don't think we're with you.
Oh, really?
Listening audio?
Oh, no. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, yes, but
But not seeing anything.
yeah, it's still the audio spreadsheet.
All right, let me switch back.
Oof.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was scrolling on the wrong one. That would make sense why you couldn't see. So does everyone see that now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you can see, for example, Carrie, I wouldn't use Blu-ray _JFE or Blu-ray _JN. These are, you can see only, this is across the consortium, there are only 23 and 24 items respectively. Wherever possible, we want to remove that audience level distinction from the item type. So that's something we're looking at. And I don't know, maybe we could actually share this with you.
Dawn just suggested as much in the
Perfect.
chat, so we can find a place to put this and make it available to everyone to glance at as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea because this is a lot to digest.
It takes a lot of brain cells to follow this, Sam. And
yeah, it does.
It's really helpful to see all the work you've put into it. And I think people will instantly see, oh yeah, this makes sense, and how we have to move from one spot to another and gradually get to where we want to be.
Right, yeah.
Right, and it's the kind of thing you need to sit and look at for a while. It's
yeah. Yeah, that we can see where we can put this so you guys can actually take a look to see what your library is using and which ones we might want to eliminate. And it takes a lot of wrapping your head around it, and it was a little bit of a monster to build. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it does share the information that we needed to pull out of the system. So yeah, any other questions?
From the
go ahead.
Melissa made a good point. She says when Magic migrated to Swan, we severely cut down our item types, and I have to say, it moved. I have to say it has made our data so much cleaner and easier to manipulate, which is an excellent point. And I call those spreadsheets Shogoth. That's funny. It's funny, Victoria. I was going to say something. I was going to go somewhere with that. Oh, right. And so right now we are in the process of talking to our 3 incoming libraries who are joining us in the fall or winter of this year. And Sam is in the middle of doing mapping. No, what's the word I keep misusing mapping for?
Profiling.
Profiling,
yeah.
Thank you.
What is the mapping?
And we do want to have real conversations with these 3 libraries about, like, this is what, and try to establish this is a really, really good framework that maybe we can get this to work for you so you can fit into Swan as snugly as possible and as compactly as possible. And hopefully from there, that'll be a sort of a second jumping off point for us to say, this is how we were able to consolidate these 3 libraries. Maybe that can lead to a conversation with some of our existing members as well. if we have some sort of recommended framework.
Yeah, exactly. These conversations are never great to find a starting point, but I think having these 3 libraries come in with cleaner data, just like I forgot who mentioned in the chat, that'll just be a benefit to everybody. And then if we can all be using the same kind of item types for the same kind of maybe even loan length and that kind of thing, that would be a dream down the line.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing and we'll get these up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I sleep with it under my pillow. Yeah, I just saw that.
So that's what that is. This is one of those things we're just going to come back to. I'm going to leave this as an agenda item on every cataloging advisory meeting that we have from here into perpetuity, just to touch base on where it's gone and what progress we've made, because this is going to be a very, very slow process. So we'll check in on it fairly frequently. I have no idea where I put my agenda. There it is. I'm going to just grab the presentation back. Okay. So next, what are we at? Okay, I'm going to do another topic and then maybe we can take a break. So genre headings. I did send an email. I don't remember when at this point, about the new sort of prototype of, oops, this is not what I want to have up, of the genre heading, the genre facet. And I put it somewhere and I put it here. Okay. This is the link I sent. Acorn dev profile. So this is not live, of course, but it did demonstrate. I'm on a zero search right now. You can see the famous Seville Fisher body service manual. And this is what our genre facet looks like at the moment, which is, I think, pretty neat. You can go in and poke around it on your own if you like. What I did do was go through this list item by item and make a vocabulary of terms to remove from the genre vocabulary, not from the catalog records themselves. They're just suppressed from display and enterprise. And the rationale behind those removals was that they were terms that duplicated other facets that we had. So anything that was juvenile, anything that was about fiction / nonfiction, that wasn't also something else. So for example, you may see, I wish I had an example on offhand, but you may see like juvenile graphic novels, because graphic novels is something we might want to pull out, but juvenile fiction is not unique enough here. Here's one. Children's films is here. Actually, this I probably missed. I should probably take that one out because that sort of fits my criteria. But I can't find any good ones. But that's what it looks like right now. I did ask for feedback. I did get a good note from Colleen pointing out this very first term, which is really widely used. Literature is a little bit it's not very useful. The problem with it being, I saw that term and I interpreted, literature, like literary fiction. That's not exactly how it works. You'll see there's fiction in here, there's nonfiction, there's children's materials, there's adult materials. It's a real hodgepodge of stuff. And it's to the point where I don't think it's a useful term. Here's a magazine, for some reason, is in here. I believe this gets added a lot. I think it gets added by Marchive a lot when it's splitting up terms, when it's trying to create genres out of nothing, when there's no genre at all. I think literature is one of the things that falls back on if there's nothing better to grab onto. So I'm thinking of pulling that term as well. But that is the only feedback that I got. So I was just wanted to give everyone the opportunity to weigh in on the genre heading. Thoughts, pros, cons?
Scott, I like the idea, but if I was a patron and I pulled up View All and I saw this list that just goes on and on and on and on, and to me, at first glance, it had no meaning because it was in order by numbers instead of alphabetical.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was searching for graphic novel, I'd have to look through this whole entire thing, hoping to find graphic novel.
Yeah, it was a little silly of me to show this on a zero search. The one thing that I think that makes it a little bit easier to use is that it's meant to be to further refine an already existing search.
If
So
you
if I
click on the top bar, doesn't it sort alphabetically?
can you? I've never tried that.
We open that list again that Amy was talking about of genres. Yeah, click on the genre.
Where'd it go? Oh,
Uh-huh.
it's a little pokey right now. Right.
View all. And then if you
Oh, you're
click,
right.
yeah, A to Z.
Never
Yeah.
tried that before. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is that there. But the other thing is that if you do a search first, it becomes a little more compact. It's not perfect. And I agree with you that there are drawbacks to the way that these things come out of the box. But
Yes, Scott, I agree with Amy. A long list like that is just going to be frustrating to patrons. And the default should be alphabetical, no matter what size list. Because I'll tell you, as an Overdrive user, when I'm going in trying to narrow down on some genres, the fact that it's going by the number that's in the collection annoys the heck out of me. You know, I've got to scroll through these 50 to 100 terms trying to find what I'm looking for because I don't know how many items we have in our collection. You know, it's one of those things that does not make sense to me.
okay, that sounds good. I can definitely talk to Tara about suggesting a default sort, if that's possible. I'm not sure that's possible, but she will know.
The same goes for the format filter there. If you click on it and then you want to see alphabetically, yeah, you have to.
That's true.
Yeah, if she could do that one alphabetically instead of having to sort by A to Z, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, we can have a conversation about that and see if maybe she's heard something similar from the Discovery and User Experience group. I can definitely bring that up with her and start a conversation.
My argument with that is, are we a library or are we a garage sale?
I don't follow that argument. Can you explain?
Because a library, we put things in order, and a garage sale, they're just dumped in a box.
Oh, I like that now. Interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because right now it sorts really by the highest number of items, right? The format, the first one is book, not only because it's B, but I think because book is the most popular format.
Oh yeah, usually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar problem. There was one of those Grubhubs or something that they ordered their restaurant cuisines by number of restaurants in them, so I could never find Chinese because it was not by any C's. So yeah, I can totally relate outside of library land here. Okay. Yeah, we can look at that. Any other thoughts about this or genres? I mean, we did have a big discussion about genre already today, which is I was going to put that here. So, oh, Melissa did put something in the chat. The list is very long. However, I do like the genres that come up that maybe patrons might be interested in but unaware of. I also like how you can combine graphic novels and ghost stories. Yeah, it might be a bit of a learning curve if we get patrons using this properly. But I'm hoping it'll at least surface some stuff. Oh, and there's cookbooks. Ew, cookbooks and octopus. That's a lovely combination, isn't it? Any other comments about this? If not, we have where this is. Tara has some digging to do with how this would interact with e-resources, if at all. So that's sort of on her plate right now. I'm not sure. I have to basically talk to her about how she wants to proceed. This meeting was like the next thing on our timeline for this, so we may be able to launch. This was very easy to put together. I mean, once the technical part, actually building the thing in Enterprise was fairly easy. So look out for this fairly soon, provided she's able to answer her questions about e-resources. Yes. So, I'm sorry, oh, there it is. I was very confused by this match, but I got it now. Okay. I want to turn back to our agenda, and I want to look at what time it is. It is 2:30. We've been sitting for an hour. Why don't we take a break for 5 or 6 minutes, and then reconvene, and we can talk about future projects. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. I'm going to mute myself then.
Hi, Diane.
Okay, I'm not sure. Everyone turned their camera off, so I'm not sure where people are. If you're sitting or if you're still off and about. But give me a sign if you are out there and ready to come back. Hi, Joy. Oh, I see cameras flipping on. Okay, good. Oh, and people are unmuting. Okay, good, good, good. So, hi, Diane. Hi, Melissa. The next thing that I want to start going over, this topics 5 and 6 are kind of they're not a package, but they're kind of the same approach that I'm looking at, just talking about things that we might want to talk about. And so with both of these things, feel free to tell me that you are not interested in this at all and that I should move on and think about other things. But I wanted to just bring these up. So the first bit here, number 5, reimagining library of things / MARC online records, has to do with the conversation that happened at Cataloging Advisory in its previous form, maybe a year and a half ago, when somebody, I forget now who, brought up the question, what if we were to share records for devices and objects and these sorts of library of things, materials? And there was a lot of feedback. There were opinions going both ways. And at the time, it was not something that I really had the resources to focus on, since there wasn't a major consensus, but we also didn't seem to have a major problem that we needed to solve at the time either. I sort of just let that one sit for a while, but I did want to come back to it. So really there's two questions here. The first is whether that is something we want to talk about, the sharing of records, but I also wanted to talk about MARC Online records in general, and the prospect of potentially standardizing them a little better. We do have a lot of libraries doing very, very different things with their records, which can be a bit confusing if you're looking at all of them one after the other. On the other hand, I'm not sure anybody's really doing that except for people at Swan Central, so it may be a non-issue. So I just kind of wanted to bring up this giant nebulous topic and see if anybody had any thoughts on any of that.
Okay, Scott, as always, I'll speak first unless someone else wants to.
Go ahead.
No, okay, no, I thought someone was going to say something. Julie, you unmuted. Did you want to?
No, you go ahead, Joe. Joy. Joy, go ahead.
You know, I don't know. Is it broken? Is basically my first question. Because, you know, the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, if it is causing issues, then yes. We could try and come up, you know, do we want to do something general of hotspots? No matter what kind you have, you attach your items to this hotspot record. As a sometimes anal cataloger, it would have to be, you know, a group decision because I'm used to being specific. Used to having a bib record with the specifics of what I own. And when I replace my iPads, then I just go in and update the record to, you know, to what my new iPads are, so that I don't have to create a whole new bib record.
I think
it is to me, if you can tell, I don't know that it really matters to me.
That's basically the first question, is because you said if it's not broken. I agree. I don't know if it's broke or not. Occasionally we get questions about these records. Occasionally we have people who don't know how to approach them or very confused by how to make their own. But I don't have feedback from people about usability, about what their patrons think of them, whether their materials are being surfaced, if they even need to be surfaced in a catalog, that kind of thing.
Right, because then my other concern is that, like on the hotspots, we only allow them to go out to Tinley Park cardholders. So is that going to be confusing that we have 50 libraries all on the same bib record and they can't be out on interlibrary loan?
I agree with Joy. It's Colleen. I mean, our hotspots, they want them all on the same record, but we have, like 4 different kinds going. It started with a Sprint, and then we got this, and then, now it's T-Mobile, and it would mean, I don't know, our whole device collection, it's a hot mess, and to try to combine it with the rest of Swan, it just sounds even worse to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas if it is confusing to some people, I could see where we could come up with, okay, if you are creating a record for a device or a library of things, these are the basic fields that are standard. And then we can work from there. Because, is a model number, is that standard? Well, your frying pan or a rice cooker may not have a model number. But there again, like with the book, if it doesn't have an ISBN, well, you don't create one. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have
because there again, that brings up, I was going to ask a question, this may or may not be a good time. How are we going to mark these records or indicate that these records are mark online?
Oh.
I thought we were underneath discussion on how we were doing that.
Yes.
It's like I'm doing, but I don't remember because I don't do enough of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a lot. Whereas that could change in 6 months, that I think would be helpful to have, standards that for the OCLC libraries, it's like, okay, you need to include this information so that it doesn't try, the system doesn't try to match it to a record in OCLC.
Right. Yeah, this is something that I have given some thought to and that I do want to talk about. Because I think I have I think I've figured out, at least for me, the best way to do it. But I mean, I'm obviously not the only person doing this. And I think I've mentioned before, are we seeing my workflow? Sometimes workflows doesn't show up.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even remember why I opened it. I want to find anything. Just have a bit record open. Okay. So we have our control tab, and we have our record formats, which are defined at the Symphony level, and they are assigned based on import. This record format is assigned based on the fixed field, but there are a couple that sit outside of that, and this is sort of where I was finding the solution to this problem. For example, we already use this ILL brief catalog record format for ILL records. That's sort of what gets assigned when you're going through the add title wizard. And I was thinking about establishing one of these for our Mark Online records, which would mean, and it's a whole job of work because I'd have to then reassign every field that's valid within that. Each of these has a different set of valid fields and labels. So it means 245 means title. You got to set that all up. It's fine. I'm happy to do it, but this is where I was sort of seeing that. The benefit of this is that it would then be really easy to exclude from reports. BCA also can look at this thing to exclude. I could use it then to filter out things that go to OCLC during our monthly or whatever they are holdings updates. It's a neat, pretty dynamic way of doing things. Drawbacks: it is a Symphony field, so it would not transfer well to another ILS if we ever went that direction in the future. And it would have to be manually set. I don't know any way to, all of the fixed fields are taken, basically, and mapping to something else. ILL brief comes to add title. I don't want to mess with any of that. So we would have to have people pretty aware of using this record format. We could also, as we move here to the Blue Cloud cataloging, that format can be part of a template, so that's kind of nice. And that's it. Those are all my points. But that's what I was thinking about for that.
Scott, I'm all for that. That sounds really good to me. And then the only other, when you come up with the standards, is that there needs to be a 946 with the agency code /Mark Online or Mark. For whatever reason, I've always just done plain old Mark. But that was years ago with Tony. For some reason, I believe that was the phraseology, we used to distinguished. And then, the date. So that if we were to ever migrate to another system, we would at least have it in the 946.
That's true.
That is like, or you could do MARC/the agency code. I think right now we're used to doing the agency code first, or at least I am.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you want to be able to retrieve everything MARC without carrying the library, doing MARC first would obviously work better, unless you can search for contains, and then it won't matter if the agency code is first.
True.
And I'm sorry, I'm getting nitty gritty on the details.
No, that's a good point too, because I mean, if that MARC were there, and I wasn't familiar with that, I don't think I've ever seen that in our catalog. I mean, that's probably obviously fallen out of use.
Find anything for Tinley Park, anything that starts.
Okay.
Yes.
I mostly
that's what I
know
need.
the ones. Yeah, because the benefit of that would be that I could draw up some sort of system that if this record format is improperly assigned and it does see that MARC in the 946, it could just flip this to whatever it is. So that's really neat. I might write this down. And finally just go ahead and do it. It's just something that I've poked around it, but it's a lot of work to do, and I didn't want to just do it and then have everybody hate it. So, MARC online record format. Okay.
Melissa is saying that having one bib record can be very useful for basic things.
Yes.
Like we talked about, like umbrellas, those things that you don't have to be very detailed. It's an umbrella.
Yeah, it's true. To go back to that, it would also save people a little bit of work, I suppose. But the point that then holds would be a little confusing on it. It occurred to me as you were saying that, Joy, that it helps to see that a record does belong to Tinley Park, for example. So that anybody placing hold would understand what that really was, as opposed to, iPad, 30 out of 96 libraries. It becomes similar to our e-resources, where there's just stuff being presented to people that confusingly cannot be accessed, which is why we took all those e-resources out of the catalog, which is not something I had thought about.
Yeah, with a lot of the library things, it's like I will defer to libraries that are actually doing library of things.
Mm-hmm.
Our library of things right now, I think, is hotspots.
Yeah. Okay.
I think everything else that we've had over the years has gone away. So.
And I would have to say that I think hotspots are a wild west that we all handle individually on our own. I don't think we should get into bed with having a single hotspot record. I think that is just a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. But I think it's something that we need to consider when we have things like last year it came up where we were adding consoles. Like we added Nintendo Switch and Xbox One consoles and PlayStation 4, and we added various controllers. And with something like that, or when we all own the same Dell 500 series Latitude laptop, where if we just standardized it, where we were going to say that we would pull in an OCLC record, because that's the other thing that kind of gets into this. Like I understand wanting to have this MARCHIVE format, but like, to me, why wouldn't we use the audiovisual format with the record type R to indicate that something's realia? Like and maybe that's just me, because we are trying to use more OCLC records for the things that we own. Mm-hmm. And so when I searched for the switches, and a switch I think is a not a perfect but a somewhat better example, because those are so specific, whereas iPad, just like hotspot, it gets so nebulous, so out of there. But when we have these things where we all do across 10 libraries, we own the same thing, it seems silly when we're in this consortium where we should be sharing records at the very least, that we would have 10 records for the same item. And yes, they wouldn't all circulate to each other, and that could get, but like we're having the confusion with patrons when they search for our console, for our Switch consoles, they're finding the 5 other libraries that have theirs in addition to ours. And they don't understand why they're separate. Like, and it's kind of one of those, our youth services staff don't understand it either. And it would just be nice with certain things, like hotspots we wouldn't bother with, iPads would be a mess. But like with the things where we all like, there seems to be 4 or 5 of us where we all own the same thing. If we could just agree to use the one record, you know, like maybe it doesn't need to be as big as
everything. That is sort of what I wanted to hear when I was saying, asking for like a reason. Like if you're having patron difficulty, that's pretty telling. If you're having staff, you know, giving you feedback that it's not ideal, that's what I want to build off of. To clarify one thing, the definition of what these MARC Online records are is very specifically something that does not have a corollary on OCLC. Something that would have.
But even still, if you didn't have, if you had something that was just being used internally, I mean, that's what we have done. Is that incorrect then? Should we not be using? Oh, no. I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. Like, am I messing you guys up?
No, absolutely not. There's nothing. You're not messing anything up.
Yeah, Julie, historically, you know, it was created for things like your local village minutes that nobody else cared about. Turned into like this equipment as technology came around, you know, that basically you can interlibrary loan it. So, and with a lot of libraries, well, it's like they don't want a lot of information. So it's like, it's just a generic, you know, Tinley Park hotspot, no other information, or basically maybe Acorn, you know, no other information. And then comes along, you know, Joy at Tinley Park, you know, does OCLC, so is used to doing more cataloging. So it's like that, okay, I think I've kind of flipped. I'm fine with having one record. It's like, we've discovered that we have the same hotspot, and why can't we use the same record? Because patrons know some new books, not everything will go out on interlibrary loan. So is it confusing to have multiple libraries on one record?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't know if it's going to necessarily be confusing for patrons if they're already used to on Blu-rays or combo packs. Like if they know that your library is not on it, that they might not get a hold. Like and maybe that's assuming too much. But I guess to me it's just I get questions from our technology staff about why when they search Dell laptop do 15 of the same records come up, and I don't have a good answer. And it's one of those things, like as a cataloging library that appreciates the record sharing, if not, I mean, these wouldn't necessarily be research, but I just think that it'd be nice. Mm-hmm. And then we would always have the option of, if things get really weird and you really do need a Tinley or a Batavia or a St. Charles record, we could pull ourselves out of the loop. Right. Whereas if we kind of try to default into more universal records, I don't know. I'm rambling now. I'm going to mute myself.
No, and you are always going to have those situations where, you know, you swap out a charging cable or a peripheral, or you have a preloaded device, and of course they're going to fall out of the common use, and by necessity they're going to have to. But so what I'm hearing, and what it seems like we would need, and maybe I'm making this up, but what we would need to have in mind for this to work would be specificity. Is that necessarily true? We couldn't necessarily have, you know, one record that's shared for console games, game consoles in general, whereas other people are using PlayStation for, you know, special edition, whatever. It would have to be all at that level of granularity in order to be comprehensible. Is that?
I think so. And then I think it would also need to be a conversation about those libraries that, since we're used to using our individual records and having our super long, specific 300 notes or 500 notes, like whether or not they would be willing. I mean, because we've had our conversation and our tech people have really flipped on that, which I very much appreciate, that they're okay with the Switch record just saying it comes with a Switch and accompanying material varies. But other libraries might have, it comes with a Switch and it comes with 3 games and it comes with, you know, so it's like, is, you know, on the base, what it's actually, the record is, it needs to be that, you know, you're just doing this, and any extra stuff, you have to be okay with putting that in some other sort of note, in a circ note or a staff note or something, you know, where we would need to have these records that are not minimum, like they're specific to model types and things, but like the 300 or 500 note wouldn't be appropriate for library specific information. If that makes any sense.
Right. Well,
I'm
I mean, yeah.
gesturing a lot, and you guys can't see it because my camera is broken. So this is just, anyway.
Yeah, because, you know, there's always going to be exceptions. Like, you know, you could have a basic record for an iPad, but then again, I may have to create a specific one because my youth services librarians wants a list of all the contents, so that if someone's looking for the latest Rebecca Caudle and all of our print copies are gone, nothing's available on Overdrive, it's like, hey, our iPad is available.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we have any iPads left in the library, but I know at one time, I think that was our rationale. So it's like, I think, you know, if we have that option open, whereas if you're just circulating, you know, I don't even know if anybody's circulating iPads, the devices anymore, but, you know, for, you know, the hotspots, and like Julie said, with the different console game systems, you know, basically everyone's basically going to be buying a specific model. Why can't we all be on the same record? And if you are including 3 specific titles every time that console game is checked out, well, that's what the item content information in the extended information, the circ note, is for.
Mm-hmm. Or the option exists to treat that like a house-made kit,
Mm-hmm.
and make a record for it with your access points and all of that nonsense. Okay.
So I'm getting ready tomorrow to catalog bongo drums, a keyboard, and a violin. What do you want me to do? Do I make my own records? Or do I try to make a generic thing?
I would make a generic thing. I think you should do exactly what your instinct tells you to do, because this is going to be something that we're going to talk about over a few months. And I can
always switch it then. Okay.
Yeah, or you can keep those bongos at your
or
desk.
it's a good excuse not to do them tomorrow and just put it off for a while.
Fair. Yeah, it's going to be tough to get sort of this message out. It's going to be kind of a. So I wouldn't worry about what to do exactly right now, and keep going. What I think needs to happen, and I don't know if this sort of workflow that I've been imposing on us works for you, but I can take a stab at writing some stuff up and getting some thoughts together, and then sort of synthesize what we've talked about here so far, and then we can sort of get more into the weeds on it next time around. Has that been working? It's how we did the cataloging library agreement, and I think it worked. But any thoughts on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Good. That's why I will just do a bunch of homework on that, and I'm going to incorporate use of that possible format, the Sociodynex format policy, for things that don't fall into the category that we're talking about of some things that are shared. So, and honestly, that's really internal. I mean, I want that for very, very selfish reasons. It's easy to filter things out of a pre-cat report. Putting that, doing our OCLC number cleanup has been setting it up was sort of a nightmare because all of those records fell into it, and it would have been great if there were one way to get rid of them. So that's where that comes from. It really is just internal use and my happiness. Okay. Any other thoughts on this before we move on to the next little bit?
Yeah, if you want to see some examples, Scott, Tinley Park probably has one of the shorter lists.
Okay.
Some of our stuff is internal use only, like our conversion station. I didn't create separate records for everything that can be used. It's just generic conversion station, and then the call number states what the item is.
Okay.
So
Conversion stations.
some other options. Because the other thing with these type of things, are patrons really searching our catalog for this? You know, are libraries promoting it and having lists or somehow being able to find their items and linking to it on their website?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And if they aren't searching the catalog for it, is that because they don't intend to or want to, or is that because our data is no good? That it's not coming up in the first place? I don't have that answer. I wonder if we can get at that answer somehow. I'm also going to talk to Tara about this and see if she has any insight. Okay. Good. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. And then with that, you know, we just need to decide what we want to put in the 946.
Right. Yes. I have that as one of the details we have to work out. Ooh. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So the next bit on here is another thing that we may be easy or maybe not. I just wanted to talk about foreign language materials in general. One of the things that we noticed rarely with record management was, what am I talking about? The 650. We saw a couple of records where there was a 650, you know, that special one we sort of set aside, Spanish language materials, Polish language materials. It's not an authorized term, but we use it there. But it was the only subject. And my instinct when I see this is we require one valid 650 field. The Spanish language materials one doesn't count towards that quota. And we need to have subject analysis on these materials outside of its, you know, fake little term. And that sort of snowballed into, do we need to talk about foreign language records in general? And so then I just sort of started thinking about whether you guys felt like we needed more guidance on those sorts of things. So can I talk about the 650 bit first? Do you agree or disagree with me that there should be something outside of that language heading?
Yeah, I will say that the problem is some of the old, especially the Spanish ones, they don't believe in putting in subjects. So depending upon who you have on staff, because sometimes I will sit on some foreign language for a while so that hoping that someone else will come along and upgrade the OCLC record because I don't know French.
Mm-hmm.
Through Spanish and German, but the other languages, I'm pretty much at the mercy of the catalogers. But yes, they should have subjects beyond, because to me, the 650 that we're asking for, whatever language materials, is like a genre. And just having a genre is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my opinion.
I wanted to say that this discussion reminded me of something else related to the 650 for second indicator one.
Mm-hmm.
Link used 650 second indicator one as our language material heading. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of the not wanting to delete those might have been also to verify that all of those got flipped to the 650 heading. Okay. Sorry, I remembered. I also think it would be nice if it was recommended instead of required, because echoing Joy's point, sometimes you don't know, and I don't know. I think it's sometimes better to get stuff out there than hold off. So if it had a heading, that's great, but if you can't figure one out, still okay. But that's just me. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going to write down the thing before I forget.
It's Colleen. I've spent time, you know, taking what's on the back of a book and typing it into Google and translating it and then getting my subject headings and putting them on. But anything, you know, that's not Arabic and Chinese and our other foreign languages that I can't be doing that. So, I mean, it's time consuming.
It is.
You can't do it with all of them unless you're more adept than me at foreign languages.
it also brings up how beneficial is that heading if it's in English, and you're cataloging something that is a non-English language. Like, is that heading even serving the population that, you know? And then we just get way off. And then, you know, I'm sorry, it's 3:30. I've lost my filter. I'm going to mute myself.
It's fair. It is only 3, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that is an excellent question, and I don't know that we can get any insight into usage there. But I would argue that it's possible that they would be utile for, you know, a reference librarian who needs to find, you know, cookbooks in Polish, for example, you know, to have that, even if that thing is in English, the term itself, it's still being used by somebody to serve somebody else, would be kind of my counter argument.
Mine too.
Thank you. Ooh, I feel like we've had this discussion before, and I feel like there's just so many, because I sympathize so much with the idea that this thing is in Arabic, there's just nothing you can do about it. You know, you can't even copy paste anything into Google Translate properly a lot of the time to even fake it. But
That's why you use a vendor that provides MARC records.
I mean, that is an option sometimes.
Either that, or you've got to find someone who will come in for contract cataloging.
Right. I mean, we have had, oh, go ahead.
Victor is saying that Google Translate app does okay-ish. The transliteration is the worst. She's saying, I have done like searching, like for example, Arabic. I have the ISBN, so I do an online search, and it comes up with the title. I use transliteration tables in the Library of Congress, then throw it into Google Translate. Yes, it is time consuming, and it's a lot of steps, but it's whatever the group decides. I'm good.
Yeah, Claudia, we got a grant, when we first moved into, or just before we moved into this library, you know, over 15 years ago. They got it from a bookstore in California. They were supposed to transliterate the title. They had it on handwritten note that was stuck in every book, which did not necessarily match the invoice, which did not necessarily match their website. I had, I think it was an Arabic translation of a French work that was a translation of an English work with an ISBN, and I still couldn't find it.
Yeah, sometimes you cannot
I
find
had
it.
a contract cataloger come in, and he found everything. So, you know, I think, you know, it's something that SWAN may have to just, you know, encourage libraries. If you're doing these foreign languages, if you don't have staff who can catalog them correctly, that you do need to get it from a vendor that will provide at least minimal cataloging.
Is that possible? I mean, some of those languages, what kind of vendors are they coming from? Arabic, Chinese?
There are a couple of vendors out there. The one that was highly recommended was Multicultural Books and Videos, but their cataloging can be iffy. We got a bunch of children's, and when I'm up, you know, enhancing the Arabic records, because there was some English in there, you know, that kind of speaks to them. There's another source for Arabic, but I believe they're also based in California, but we haven't ordered from them yet because I haven't been able to get a sample of their MARC records. They sent it to me like in a MARC record format that I can't open and see. And then with the pandemic shutdown, I haven't been able to follow up with them. It's like, give me some screenshots. Okay. So I think there are sources out there. And it's one of those things, if you are getting 1 or 2 titles, AutoCAD, you have people who will help you.
That's a fair point. There is a community.
You know, it's just like when, you know, because I was asking some questions back when we got that grant, and someone did offer to help, but it's like, I have 50 books. I am not going to make you help me with 50 books. That is not reasonable. It's like, you should be paid for that. But it's like if one or two as, a gift, or just, because you're only buying one or two a year, I think people on AutoCAD would be very willing to help.
Okay. So, yeah, we can make some recommendations around the idea of, vendors that may be useful for providing better data, some places to get this stuff. The bottom line of my question is whether we should be following up, basically, whether this should be something that Claudia, what's the word, notices and talks to libraries about when there's a subject missing from a foreign language record. Is it required or is it not? And what kind of follow-up should we do? I mean, I'm almost inclined to say it's required on paper, but we understand the limitations, and if it doesn't happen, maybe we can, when we come across that sort of thing, we can, instead of saying, oh, this is an error, we can say, oh, this is something we can help you with, and try to make it happen, while at the same time encouraging people to use every resource they have. That seems so wishy-washy, doesn't it?
Scott, is there a way that this can be easily identified and crowdsourced
What do you mean?
to our SWAN community? If those are missing, like, because we have people throughout our SWAN membership that are, foreign language speakers, and they may be able to help one or two here and there. You know what I mean? If there was just some resource where we could all share, these are the missing ones, who can help? I don't know. That may require too much care and feeding to be practical, but it does seem kind of crazy to hold up getting something out in patrons' hands because we're not able to fill in that information.
Exactly. Okay. That's something I can definitely think about. Whether we could just find a way to, as Victoria is saying, pool our resources, and I don't know what forum would be good for that, or if the forum would be good for that. But I can give it some thought. We're going to go ahead and, if it's okay, leave this here. And I promise not to, come for your house if we find a foreign language record that is missing this data. But I'll think about ways that we can encourage it to be there without being putative.
And I want to make myself available if anyone is stuck with an item and it's holding off, not putting to circulate because you're having trouble cataloging. I can give a shot at it, and I'll be glad to.
Yeah,
help.
That's definitely a thing to say. Don't wait on it because you're apprehensive about the cataloging. If you need to get it up out on your shelf, feel free to get it out on your shelf, and feel free to let us know. At SWAN too, if you need assistance with this type of thing, we have done that before.
Yeah.
And
I'm especially fond of Arabic.
I was cataloging some stuff that was in Urdu, and I took photocopies to the Circ desk because they knew people that did that language, and patrons would fill in the translation for me. So that's kind of a awkward way to do it, but it worked because I had no idea. It was at a different library several years ago, but patrons like to help with something like that sometimes for the base.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stories that we hear about a friend of a friend who happens to be helpful. It looks like Victoria says something in the chat about something related close to that. Yeah, staff who can give me broad terms. So, yeah, okay. I basically wanted to know our thoughts on this, and I feel pretty good about that, despite the tone in my voice. So, Yeah, I'm gonna brainstorm and get some thoughts together. But yeah, and we'll put something together in terms of like a document for people who may be also swimming with this conversation, and give them some direction as well. One of the other bits about foreign language materials, just more in general, I feel like sort of our standards speak to foreign language materials as well as they would for English language materials, but I just wanted to make sure that you agreed with me, or if you feel like you need more guidance on what needs to be included in these records, in terms of minimum field requirement and all of that. Or do you feel good about it? I could take your silence as feeling good about it, or at least feeling secure.
What's the actual question?
The question is, do you feel when you,
Here, so
each of you personally, when you're doing your work, do you feel like you have what you need to know that the record that you're putting into the SWAN database is up to code and up to SWAN standard and that? I'm hearing a couple of yeses on the chat, which is good. All right. Not always. Victoria, could you expand on that? Like what could I do to make it easier for you? AV stuff, the short list of the extra fields. With regard to foreign language AV materials, okay. That is something that I actually think I might be able to help with. I can give a pass to some, maybe a quick little reference document on that topic. So thank you. And the last bit that was here, it was actually came from Claudia. I forget the details of the conversation we had, but you had brought up the 242 field.
Wait, am I muted? No. Okay. Yes, I was cataloging a book in Arabic that was, the original language was Chinese. So the translation from Chinese to English is frog or frogs. I can't recall one of those. I think it's frog. So I found it useful to have a 242 in the record, or a 240, because that was published in English as frog. To have a 240 with the title in English, but sometimes you don't have a title in English. So I think having a 242 with the cataloger's translation to English, I find it helpful. I think helpful having a 242 in case you don't have a 240 with an official translation of the title.
Have any of you used that field before? It's not one that I was terribly familiar with.
No, I've never heard of a 242. And are you talking about doing that if it is a translation from English and it is material?
For instance, an Arabic title that there's not an official translation in English. So you, as
I
user,
feel comfortable coming up with an English translation of a language that I don't speak. If it's the work, I would provide it. But I would not feel comfortable in any way, shape, or form of presuming that I would have the right translator, because those online ones, they're okay. So to give you the gist of a summary of what you're working on, but I don't know if it would be exactly reliable to put in a field in a bib record. That's just me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious about usage of that. It's not something that I don't think we'd ever even consider making, required or anything, but it is a thought. If I were maybe super fluent in a language, I might consider, but I'm not. You can name a language, I'm not fluent in it, so. Okay, just curious about that. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to go back here. Any other thoughts about these two topic areas, or any other things you think you might want to tackle as a group? I realize that's a big question, but this is sort of the portion of the meeting where I'm putting my homework together. And if there's any like big ticket items you've been hoping to bring up this week, or excuse me, this month, now would be the time to do that.
This isn't a big ticket thing, but kind of related to foreign language titles, specifically AV. I'm thinking DVD, Blu-rays, and combo packs. If we could consider again, maybe just as a group long term, preferring when it's on the packaging, preferring to put the English language title in the 245A with the parallel title in the B, even though that is not necessarily technically following the rules. We found that and I know that we all kind of do it, but it happened recently again when I was cataloging our combo pack copy of Parasite, and they had the Korean title first and I flipped it, so like it was me. But I think if anybody's getting in trouble, I did it. But it's just one of those that I think it helps patrons. I think it's a little bit better patron service when it's predominantly on the cover. Again, if it's something that print or AV where the non-English language is predominant and first, of course we would go with, as we should, the title in proper order. But just something to think about. I don't know if I missed some meetings, so maybe we talked about it. So I apologize if this is redundant, but just a plug.
Specifically, are you referring to foreign language titles in general, or are you referring to non-Roman titles specifically?
I'm referring to non-Roman titles. Primarily, this seems to happen with DVDs and Blu-rays and combo packs. It doesn't, because you have the title properly, I don't even remember the word, but in order, in print, on the spine, in the book, all of that. But when you have a title like Parasite or the Samurais, where the title is in Korean or Japanese in the record, and nowhere on the container does it have the title in, so you get this record that has, like, the title says this, but like a patron and reference staff are like, everybody knows this is Parasite. Why does this look weird? And it's just not that it looks weird. I shouldn't have said it that way. But just something to consider.
I may be wrong, but I feel like that comes from the oldish AACR2 standard of taking titles from the title screen of films. Oh my God, my cat is okay. From the title screen, where I'd have to look at it, but I feel like that's been loosened with RDA, and I feel like there is more of an emphasis on,
It has, but they technically, I mean, if you want to get like super, it is still, from what I understand, my reading of RDA from years ago, so it could have updated since then, but like technically a title screen is still preferred.
It is still,
and that's why all of the records for really any sort of AV is supposed to have that title from container or disk surface or whatever. That's why we do that, because the title is supposed to come from the material itself, but who has time for that? So I know that we are doing it fairly consistently, but it's just one of those things that I don't even know if we want to make it formalized, but I don't know. It's one of those things that it kind of comes up on a semi-consistent basis from reference librarians. So I just thought I'd make mention.
That's a fair point. Victoria said in the chat the title screen's not even accessible. When she's doing cataloging, her computer doesn't have a disk drive, which is becoming more and more common on its own. I don't really have a problem with the idea of that, and I don't know if there's an objection to it in here. I don't think we could go so far as to say, well, you've done this wrong because you took it from the title screen, but I wouldn't I wouldn't be opposed to putting language in our guidelines that say, listen, this is helpful to patrons if you use the container title. So, you know, opt to use the container title if you're able to.
Yeah, basically, I agree.
I have to thank you so much for this, because I've been fighting this back when Tony was even here. And it was just frustrating for our public staff when the title would show up and it was the foreign language and everybody knew it as the, like, even at Das Boot. I mean, it was so frustrating. So I thank you for coming up with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with Julie that basically if I had something like that, it's like I would probably flip the title too, because it also, you know, it's not just the catalog, it's the overdue notices.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Know that they have the parasite, and it's like, well, what's this, you know, Korean thing? I don't have anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah, I thought that's why because of overdue notices and staff that are picking from the pick list, they don't know what it is either. So yeah, I thought we did decide to put the English first. That's okay.
And I've flipped a couple of those myself. So maybe, I would like to say something about this. Claudia, maybe this is a good Claudia's Corner topic, since we have officially named your newsletter becoming a thing.
Oh, I'm glad you guys named it, because I wouldn't have been able to come up with a fun name.
Claudia's Cataloging Corner.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. So let's yeah, and I'll write this down. I'll put it to support site paper, and we can sort of just let people know that that's really okay to do, especially since we're doing it anyway. Does the 240 appear in Enterprise? I know that shouldn't be a stumper, but now that you asked me, I can't even imagine what color Enterprise is. Let's do this. What's a thing that has a 240? I know it does if this ever loads. Okay, so this looks to be an audiobook, so nobody has this. So now I need to have something that has a 240. What has a 240? This is always so hard when we need one. Nobody? No. Little Prince? Thank you. We've got to limit to print stuff really quickly. Oh, good Lord. Book, apply. We have this one, looks probably fine. Oh my gosh, stop moving. It looks like no, but yeah, it's only in the extended view here. So yeah, not on the main page, which is, I suppose, logical to me, considering we have limited real estate. Oh, and it's definitely searchable. Okay. Okay, the rest of this will be pretty quick. So, Blue Cloud cataloging search issues. If anybody here was at the Blue Cloud update this morning, it was the Blue Cloud got a version update, and so we did one of our little overviews of new features and bug fixes. You'll have heard me talk about this already. So basically, just FYI, FYI everybody's eye, there were no updates to Blue Cloud cataloging this time around, no bug fixes, but we did do some digging into a couple of Blue Cloud search issues that Blue Cloud search updates that sort of snowballed into a larger conversation. And the one that's relevant here is Blue Cloud cataloging has added a feature so you can search by catalog key that didn't exist before. So you can, type in a catalog, you can get an exact record rather than having to search for a title and dig through till you find the right one. But the issue is that it's not working properly. I got specific instructions on how to configure it, and then I had to run an indexing process to get it to, actually work. That did not. I ran the process; it ran fine, but it didn't make the it didn't activate the field. So I was digging around in that, and I found that there's a number of indexing process and harvest process that work behind the scenes to make Blue Cloud work, and one of them has been failing for quite a while. It turns out we didn't have any sort of indication that was happening, but I think it may be related to a couple of the search anomalies that have been pointed out with Blue Cloud cataloging. And these search anomalies sort of were, there were one or two, and then there were two or three, and this thing is becoming easier and easier to find, and so I think it might be related. So there was also a ticket that Robin, our e-resources consultant, sent a few weeks ago because they had noticed a problem with the e-resources and Blue Cloud Mobile. It was sort of unrelated, but they pointed to these same search indexes as the possible problem. Sociodynamics had done some work to try to get that to fix that failed index process. They were not able to do it, and then it sort of fell off the vine. So I'm going to be sending another ticket to them tomorrow with I know it's the same problem, but it's going to be our version of that problem to sort of hopefully, give them a little kick in the butt to sort of get back on that case, and hopefully get to the bottom of some of the things that Blue Cloud cataloging mysteriously cannot find. Amy sent some examples, and I've got a couple, but I'm going to sit with Claudia tomorrow and make sure that we have current examples. It's been like a week since we looked, so we're just going to make sure it's all still relevant. Oh, Claudia, I'm sorry. In the chat, you asked me to become the presenter. So
no, that was an accident.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So that's what that is. It's just a little update that we're having some issues with cataloging. I know not too many people in this room are using it right now, but it does have ramifications because we do have some extra precat libraries on it right now. There is the possibility that they would run into searching issues and not know it, which is the dangerous part there, is that it has the potential to be creating some duplicates. Blue Cloud, Aspen Discovery Evaluation. This is something that I just want to have on everybody's radar because this is going to. No, this isn't in the known issue. Sorry. To go back to Blue Cloud cataloging, Victoria asked, "Is this in the known issues?" It is not yet, and I will make a known issue about it. This sort of snowballed in the past 12 hours. Well, at this point, 18, 19 hours, but I will put something up there so people are aware of. Thank you. Oh, sorry, made me lose my train of thought. I was talking. Oh, right. Okay, Aspen Discovery. So we are in the process of configuring this discovery layer from Bywater called Aspen. And I've mentioned this before. It's now loaded up with our catalog, which is super nice. All of our MARC is in there. Our e-resources, the ERC connectors have been configured. We're still, though, in the process of initial configuring. We've done some training internally on the administrative configuration and all of that. So it's not quite ready for prime time. But I do want to get your input when it is ready. And the thing about that is that's probably going to happen before September, and I don't want to wait until September to start talking about it. So what I've talked to Tara about it, and she is going to get the Discovery and User Experience group to evaluate the Aspen Discovery layer. And I've told her that whatever she does with Dux, I would sort of like to do in parallel with some members of Cataloging Advisory. So I don't have a timeline. I don't have exact assignments or anything yet, but I will be I will send a message to you guys when we get closer to being ready to evaluate Aspen, asking for volunteers and to see if anybody has any interest in looking at that alongside of us. You're just going to have a perspective with this data that I think is really, really valuable, especially considering there's ferberization in there, and we're going to be looking at search relevancy and all of that. So hopefully that'll be interesting. This is alongside some testing we'll be doing internally, of course. I put together a search set of about 50 search scenarios to look at, and I tried my best to target some of our common, cataloging woes within enterprise and within SWAN in general. So we can see if this is a solution to them, and if it makes anything better, or if it makes anything worse, which I don't think it'll make anything worse, but we will see. So it's pretty cool, and I'm excited. So be on the lookout for an email, and yeah, I'll let you know then what the time commitment would be and the sort of the responsibilities with that.
Scott, since this is the first time hearing of this, is this replacing Enterprise?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had talked about this over last meeting. The idea is yes.
If you did, it went in one ear and out the other, and I apologize.
That's fair, and it would have been really brief. So we, basically Aspen would be an enterprise replacer. So it does all of the things that, well, I can't say all yet, but it does the things that enterprise does. It's got, it's got a search interface. It's got the, patron account management tools, e-resources, all of that stuff. And so, yeah, that would be the goal if it ends up being a good goal.
Okay, and so SWAN is testing this as a potential replacement, or we're testing it because it is the replacement?
Oh, no, we have not committed to anything yet. We have a test instance up to evaluate and decide.
And it will be a very extensive testing and evaluation period, and the decision to replace will be vetted by the membership with a lot of usability, looking at things. As people said, making a decision to replace an online public access catalog really has to have a major improvement for the staff and patron retraining and overhead. So we didn't want to stop our momentum that we had started prior to COVID. So we're doing a very limited pilot to just find out what the capability is, so we can actually compare our data in the system. We were running into this problem where we couldn't see, well, it looks good for this library, but what does it mean for SWAN's data? So we really felt we couldn't evaluate something without getting our data in it. So that's what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So, big project, but very, very early still. So any questions about that I might be able to answer, or I might have to defer? Okay. Good. Let me know if anything comes up, of course, always. What do I have next? Cataloging library requirements revision. Oh, right. So this bit, number 9, is just that. So we finished the cataloging library agreement last time around. When it comes to getting that distributed to existing cataloging libraries for them to reassess and agree again, it felt like an inappropriate time. There's just all of this nonsense going on, and there are, the attentions are focused elsewhere. This is not urgent, so we decided to wait until early 2021 to revisit this. The agreement's done, but we'll start talking to directors and cataloging leads next calendar year, when things have hopefully calmed down a little more. So I hope that's okay with everyone. It just seemed the prudent decision. And the last bit about OHM, I just have this on here as a matter of course, but there's actually not too much to update on again, mostly because the work we're doing right now is related to the other LSAPs. Again, we've been updating our OCLC holdings through this new system, this new software system, technically since February. March was the first one the first update where we weren't duplicating the work of our vendor. But it's been going very well. Hopefully, nobody's noticed any holdings anomalies or anything, any red flags. This was a quiet changeover, and the fact that it was able to remain pretty quiet is a good thing. I mean, it sort of meant that it worked properly. It was supposed to be sort of seamless. So we're gonna, just FYI, we're working on getting the other LSAPs first runs done towards the end of this month. There's 5 of them, and so we're gonna do 1 a week through the end of August. So it's pretty neat. I'm excited to get all of our sister consortia on board with this software, but that's where it is right now. Nothing too earth-shattering to go over there. And I'm getting from Carrie that she needs to leave for a 4 o'clock appointment. Thank you, Carrie. Talk soon. We're actually about to wrap up, so I don't think you're going to miss too much. Unless there was some other topic or anything that anybody else wanted to talk about, because I'm out of things to say. Problems, concerns, things you've seen, anything we've talked about today.
My staff is happy that other libraries are finally coming back because they got having to do overlays of 90% of the materials they were touching.
Oh yeah, I bet, because you were doing, we were one of the only libraries working for a while.
Yep.
Good. Yeah, our processing numbers are, in terms of at least cataloging, are excuse me, almost what they used to be. So we are looking pretty good. Ooh, get the hiccups. Anybody else have stories of returns to form or?
Scott, I just wanted to ask, in terms of updating those OCLC records, do you have a timeline on that?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm still not done with, I mean, we have over 4,000 on our.
Oh, the 001 cleanup. Yes.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a timeline on that at all. We have millions, well, not millions. We have a few thousand to go as well. Are you
I
asking?
haven't even looked at it, Scott, because I know the first ones I've looked at, they're all Mark Online. So it's like I was waiting to find out,
get out of there
with the Mark Online, because we have a large amount of Mark Online here at Tinley Park because we host the Tinley Moraine Genealogical Collection. And so
yeah,
the fence about their yearbooks of whether or not I put it into OCLC because it is not technically our collection and they can take it and leave at any time.
Sure. I mean, don't do it for me. Those were on the list because I didn't know what to do with them. So if you want to say, that's totally fine.
Yeah, and so, I'm trying to get rid of our backlog before I even start on that project. And I'm also keeping it in case I have to do work from home.
Right. Yeah. And so Colleen, I don't know if you were asking if we had a deadline in terms of if that's what you meant by timeline, and I don't at all. And really the work was offered as something to do if you had bandwidth and desire. If you can't ever look at it, that's totally fine too.
Well, I mean, we've probably done half, but I was just wondering if you had I'd like to see those done before, because then I'm not sure it would happen. So I was just wondering.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No deadline or anything like that. It's one of those things that if we'll work on it until it's faded away.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Victoria says cataloging from home is awful. Being in the building is better and more efficient. I agree with that. Are you?
I all agree.
Mm-hmm. What are you using? Are you having things shipped to your home? Oh, excuse me. VPN and random carry home items. Yeah, it seems to be the story that I'm hearing a lot. People just sort of finding kind of scrappy ways to get materials in hand and get them processed. Oh, tiny laptop. Yeah, I sympathize. Whew. I'm sorry. Yeah, any other topics to bring up? Otherwise, we can adjourn. Next meeting will be September 3rd. It will be remote as well, of course. There is a link to the event here, and I want to just confirm something on this link before we write. So there have been some changes. L2 is not accepting registration in anticipation of their platform rollover. I'm not sure what to call it. Yes.
Keep on forgetting to remove. We don't register for this because it's a closed committee.
Right, right. This, though, is a little bit different. This isn't the L2 registration. This is referring to a GoToWebinar registration. The information is here, and that might be... Dawn, you may confirm if registration is absolutely necessary. I just know it's nice because you'll get that email that this is going to start, and you'll have the link right in your email.
Yeah, for GoToWebinar, it is required, and we have to switch to GoToWebinar starting August 1st for all of our things, just until we get back to that L2 accessibility thing.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a little different than it was before. But yeah, so this registration link here is active. So go ahead and do that whenever you have the time.
And if we should take that registration information off and you just send it to the group, Scott, we can do that too, but you guys will need to register to get into the link.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Should we do that?
Maybe. To prevent
Okay. Yeah.
the rabble.
Or we could actually just register all you guys too, I think.
Oh, is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, so let's just do that and then we'll take them off of the L2
All right.
info.
So officially, don't worry about registration. Oh, Jim registered this afternoon. I know I talked to Nora, who's not here earlier this week, and she's registered. So, but we'll get you done. If you're not already on there, we'll put you on there, and we will send you, of course, the meeting info via the agenda when it gets closer to the date anyway. But you may see an email that you've been registered for a cataloging advisory, so don't worry about that. Okay. Well, thank you. This has been fun. I've got some homework to do. The next you'll hear from me will probably be related to Aspen. The next you'll hear from Claudia will be related to record management. And other than that, we'll convene in September and talk about some of these topics that we left pending. So thanks, and take care of yourselves.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
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 Bye, thank you.
Bye.